So essentially, how do we fix the problem? You fix the problem by shrinking the size and the scope of the government. You reduce spending by amalgamating departments. There's a lot of pencil pushing in these departments. We're spending $90,000, $100,000 on these salaries where people are processing things, yes, no, which a computer could do. We need to upgrade the infrastructure. Then we need to abolish entire departments and cut the spending. Then from there, what we do is we give it back to the people as an income tax relief. We reduce income tax to 10% with the intention to abolish it completely. Then you reduce corporate tax to 20%, but no bailouts, no special interests, no payments to any organisation, no subsidies. The government needs to stay out of the free market. That's how you fix the Australian economy. You can't expect the people that cause the problem to be the ones that fix the problem that they caused. The only thing that you can do is throw them out. In business, it's what we call bankruptcy. When you're a bad operator, you go bankrupt. But our government does the opposite. Every time it's about to go bankrupt, what it does is it taxes you more. While it takes this money and it puts it into projects that are ineffective or essentially just to win votes, that don't work in the favour of you and I in the long term.
What sort of investments should the government be making so that it can grow money or grow security, grow the future, instead of wasting it?
The government is the waste. It's as simple as that. Throughout human history, why did the US have a revolution in the 1960s? Small government, low tax, opportunity, because the government was small. Very little red tape, allowed for competing companies and innovation. And we saw the greatest industrial revolution we'd ever seen. The only way to fix our economic issues is not by the government to do it, it's by entrepreneurs and innovators, innovation. And the problem is, the more government control, the less innovation, because people aren't inspired. We need to inspire Australians.
Do you think corporations have anything to do with the barriers to innovation?
Absolutely.
How?
Corporations are very well known for purchasing ideas and shelving them. And sometimes if they can't purchase those ideas and shelve them, other things happen. Which I'm not going to go into conspiracies, but things happen. And somehow those technologies and those innovations either become absorbed or purchased up by a corporation, or over time they deter because the person who's created them has to take it to the stock market, and then it's controlled by the shareholders and you lose integrity of the projects. Where the government needs to be able to step in and say, no, we need competition to be fair, reasonable, without the bullying tactics or without the protectionism of other industry at the disadvantage of the innovators. For example, if we didn't fund, say, the mining sector, we didn't fund steel, or we didn't subsidise those industries, what would happen is BHP would have to shift from creating steel for construction projects to steel for windmills, for example, because that's what the market is demanding. We're not seeing that at the moment. It's too slow because the government continues to subsidise failing and fossilised industries, old industries.
Why do they subsidise these industries?
Because they're funded by them. Donors, lobbyists. They're funded to keep those industries protected. And they do it by creating regulations that make it very difficult, or sometimes even impossible, for innovation to find its feet. And they do it through regulation. For example, right now what's happening is what we're dealing with right now. The government's slow to shift on regenerative agriculture, even certification. Instead, they're giving the APVMA here in Victoria, for example, more power to assert its prerogatives over farmers.
Who are the APVMA?
The APVMA are the Agricultural Pesticide Veterinary Medical Association agency, whatever you want to call them at this point. Who knows? They're basically just the lobbyists. They're the front for Bayer, Monsanto, DuPont, all the big chemical companies. Monsanto, which is actually still around under Bayer now. They just continue the work of Bayer. Of Monsanto through Bayer now. They're the ones that are actually controlling the APVMA.
You mean through lobby groups?
Yeah. Big donations and product listings, by which are very expensive to normal entrepreneurs who have innovative products.
So are you saying that because these big corporations can give money directly to government or to political parties, that's how they absorb the money that they couldn't take directly from government?
Absolutely.
So because a party can't pay themselves, they can pay a lobby group they can help a lobby group who can pay them.
Well, say for example, the APVMA, for you to register in a chemical, you've got to go through a process, and you've got to pay a lot of money to register these. It's like the TGA, for example, registering a drug. It's a very expensive process, and they make it very expensive so innovation can't be found or can't find its legs. And then they regulate those industries in the farms and everywhere else. And that's what's really dangerous about this agricultural amendment bill that Daniel Andrews is trying to pass.
So it's similar to the TGA where Professor Petrovsky was not able to get his vaccine that he was testing, the protein-based vaccine, through the TGA process because of the costs. So he did a publicly funded approach to that.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of scientists, a lot of innovators out there that I've met through my company as well, where they've got great ideas, they've got great products, they've even got patents on them. But can they launch them? No. They either are declined, or they're not funded, or they're completely ignored.
What country would they go to get supported?
USA.
Is that happening?
Yes. If you have a look at the United States right now, there is a movement on regen. There's a lot of... The United States is very different to Australia. They're very philanthropic. People are willing to take those risks with businesses, and they see potential. When they see potential, they invest in it. Whereas we don't do that here.
So that's the Australian brain drain is happening as a result of the corporate control of our government.
It's the corporatization of our system, which then comes back to our education system. We need to really allow for competing educational frameworks, which is something we don't do. It's the same framework, and we pigeonhole our children into those frameworks, and they're not allowed to ask questions, they're not allowed to be critical, they're not allowed to think for themselves, and if they do, they're different and they're marginalised, and then the naughty kids, when in actual fact, most of these kids just need to be a lot more hands-on, which is why the introduction of STEM education is really important and really needs to be brought to the forefront. But also, our schools are being used as indoctrination camps.
Do you think that's a bit extreme?
No.
Who's determining what goes into education?
That's the magic question. I don't know. And if Gonski is the only curriculum, or one of the main curriculums, why aren't we allowed? Why don't we allow competing curriculums? Why haven't we got a framework of competition in education? Why do we protect these systems? Because let's have a look at what schools were. Schools were followed in the 70s and 80s because they were used as 9 till 3, you have your recess, you have your lunch, and it was made for industry. So people could go into manufacturing. They were trained for that. It's obsolete now, and we need to innovate and give children the flexibility to learn.